Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new Bioshock video. I hope you all are having a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and hopefully everything is going well. Now, the last time I made a speculation video or a fan theory video was quite a long time ago. I would say about roughly 4 to 5 months ago. So I came across an article and I found it quite interesting, and I want to hear your guys' take on it as well. However, I do think that I have a couple of thoughts that can actually disprove this fan theory, but nonetheless, this is a very interesting theory. So by the end of the video, I would like for you guys to let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Again, this is a fan theory. It's not fact. Don't take it as a fact. It is a fan theory. And if you want to check out the article yourself, it's by a woman named Celeste, and I'll leave the link to the article down in the description below. And if I can find her Twitter or anything like that, you can go tell her what you think of the article as well. And just tell her I sent you. That way we can just kind of share the love of the Rapture family. Anyways, I digress. So, without further ado, one final thing is in order. If you have not beaten Bioshock Infinite, this is a spoiler warning. So, again, if you have not beaten or completed Bioshock Infinite and do not want to know the end, do not watch this video until you finally beat the game. Trust me, I don't want to ruin it for you guys. So, again, last and final spoiler warning. So with that being said, sit back, relax, and let's dive into this fan theory. Now that the spoiler warnings are out, and if you're still here, obviously you've beaten Bioshock Infinite and you know what happens. So, this fan theory is about when Elizabeth teleports herself and Booker to Rapture. Well, that Rapture isn't the same Rapture that took place during the first game. Again, let me explain by reading the article, and she gives a spoiler warning as well. So, here we go. Okay, if you're reading this, hopefully you finished Bioshock Infinite and are familiar with the part where Elizabeth teleports you to Rapture. If you've been following reviews and reactions to the game, you've probably also come across this theory that you can hear Songbirds' death screeches during the very first Bioshock game, and how this implies that Booker and Elizabeth arrive in Rapture during the events of Bioshock. Personally, I didn't think the screeches sounded exactly the same and wrote it off as a coincidence, which is still my position. Nonetheless, I wanted to see if there was any evidence to support the idea that the two games can coincide chronologically, so I pulled up some videos on YouTube to do some comparisons. Most of the scenery looked pretty similar to me, but one view in particular of the main room where you arrive in Bioshock Infinite and where you get your first plasmid in the original Bioshock. It looked much cleaner and brighter in Infinite. So, I decided that Infinite must actually precede Bioshock, since obviously no one was going around doing cleanup and remodeling after Rapture's fall. That was the position that originally led me to write this article, because it pretty well debunks the whole Songbird death screech theory. So, for the first time, I've made my own video capture so I can properly compare the two rooms. But, as I'm sure the Lutesses would agree, oftentimes we set out to prove a theory, we end up with a totally different conclusion, and that's what happened here. While walking around Rapture in the two games, I realized that they are not the same Rapture. Not just 2 points in the same timeline, but two different versions of Rapture altogether. I'll show you what I mean below, and in this case, I personally will show you with pictures on the screen. In each example, the screen cap from Bioshock is on the top, and the one from Bioshock Infinite is on the bottom. So let's take a look at the first one here. Now, I'm going to let you guys know that some of these are minor things, and some of these are pretty major differences, so these are actually going to be pretty interesting. So the first picture is when Jack first arrives at the lighthouse after the plane crash, one of the lamps is askew and flickering. The same is true when Booker and Elizabeth approach the lighthouse in the bathysphere. So far, this seems to be in the same place. Let's look at picture 2 now. The bathysphere Jack arrives in is not the same one Booker and Elizabeth leave in. And if you guys actually notice, when you're playing Bioshock 1, the left bathysphere is completely destroyed. However, in Bioshock Infinite, the left bathysphere is the one you actually take. Meanwhile, the bathysphere on the right is non-existent. So I thought that was pretty interesting personally. And then she also mentions, also interesting side note, when Jack first arrives in his bathysphere, the Splicer outside asks, is it someone new? In Bioshock Infinite, when Booker arrives at Columbia, Preacher Whitting asks the same exact question. It obviously has nothing to do with the rest of this post. It was more of an Easter egg that she wanted to point out. Now, let's take a look at the third picture. The bay that Booker and Elizabeth's bathysphere is actually completely inaccessible in the Rapture of Bioshock 1. The walkway is missing and broken, and there is a gate across its entrance. Again, like I just previously mentioned. Picture 4. There are more picket signs in the original Bioshock and more variety of messages on them, as well as lots of ticket stubs strewn about on the floor. That could imply just a different point in the timeline, but additionally, there's a light fixture on the post next to the bench in Bioshock, whereas there isn't in Bioshock Infinite. Let's move on to the next picture now. In the next room, a splicer is chased up the corner of the wall by a security bot that Atlas summons in the original Bioshock, and as you can see, it goes pretty high up into the ceiling. However, in Bioshock Infinite, the ceiling is probably half the height, thus almost impossible for the security bot to go up into that corner. Now, let's move on to the next set of photos, or screen caps. So, this has to do with where you find the wrench. The main difference with the doorway where the wrench is that the debris and the toolbox, but also the design of the door, is slightly altered. So, in the original Bioshock, the toolbox is open, and there's more rubble at the bottom of the door. However, in Bioshock Infinite, there is little to no rubble. There's a closed toolbox, and there's also a picket sign right in front on the carpet. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. That's a pretty good observation. I really do appreciate the woman taking the time to actually put these two together. The next screenshot. Looking down the stairs out of the door we just came through, there are two main things to note. First, there is no Rapture Metro sign in Bioshock Infinite. Secondly, the ads on the walls are different. In Bioshock, there's a Rapture radio poster on the left and an Oxford Club Cigarettes poster on the right. In Bioshock Infinite, however, the same Oxford Club ad is on the left with a Plasmids ad on the right. In Bioshock, there are other ads higher up on the stairs, but it's too dark there in Bioshock Infinite to compare. Next, we have to do the Welcome to Rapture doorway. So, now, here's the view that spawned my whole theory. Not only is the floor much cleaner looking in Bioshock Infinite, there are no statues immediately on either side of the security door at the bottom of the window panes, and they're not divided up. And the columns in the middle of the room are much closer together. And again, this one I find to be the most interesting. Obviously, the statues in Bioshock 1 are pretty iconic in terms of Rapture, and the fact that they're non-existent in Bioshock Infinite is pretty damn interesting. Next up, we have, after Songbirds' death, here's your first view of Rapture in Bioshock Infinite. Obviously, the cool side note of the Easter egg of the Big Daddy and little sister in the background is pretty cool, I'll admit it. The Footlight Theater and Kashmir Restaurant are in the same place as they were in the original Bioshock view, but the tubes are totally different. The one leading from the room we're in at the beginning right of the image is broken, which is exactly how it ends up after Jack's plane busts through it. But here, it doesn't seem like it was ever attached to the tube going across. There are also more tubes higher up and more structures outside the window in general. Honestly, it's a much more open-looking experience in Bioshock Infinite. The next set of screen caps is as follows. Finley's once again. In Bioshock Infinite, there is no Finley's sign, only the one that says Bistro. There are also no tubes like there are in the original Bioshock, and the Fleet Hall's sign is not visible. Next up, we're going to look at the Rapture display here in the glass case, again by the doorway. Most of the environment in Bioshock Infinite is cleaner looking than in the original Bioshock, except for a few things, like a scale model of Rapture. It's far dingier in Infinite, so it looks like they really kind of dumbed it down a little bit. Next, we have a similar view to the one we saw from the stairs entrance, but higher up, essentially right behind the Gatherer's Garden. So, another distinction I didn't mention before, the typography on the Welcome to Rapture sign is a bit different. The wood paneling on the floor also seems to be going in opposite or perpendicular directions, whereas the one in the original Bioshock seems like it's in vertical. Pretty cool. Next up, we look at the Gatherer's Garden machine. So aside from being empty, the Gatherer's Garden in Bioshock Infinite doesn't have the plasmid icons along the arch above it. The gates on either side of it are also different. They reach the floor in Infinite, but in Bioshock 1, there's a stylized border along the bottom. So again, to me, that is very interesting. And the fact that Ken Levine is a developer and a creative, I guess, genius in terms of video games, why would he leave that out? That's just my question to you guys. Why would he leave out something that iconic from Bioshock 1? Finally, we're going to look at the final two screenshots. So, there are two balconies in this main room, one on the left and one on the right, looking out from the balcony. In both Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite, the one on the right is the one about the Great Chain. In Infinite, the one on the left is the same banner, but in Bioshock, the No Gods or Kings banner hangs there. So the fact that that was altered, in my opinion, is really, really cool. And then finally, it just has something to do with how the structure of the balcony is actually proposed, I guess. So the right-hand banners are visible here, though the one from Infinite is a bit harder to see since it's so dark. Trust me though, it's the Great Chain in both. Additionally, there is no decorative post at the center of the balcony railing in Infinite, and once again, you can see how much tighter everything is. The columns are closer together, and the ceiling is a lot lower. So in conclusion to her article, she says the following. So, there you are. Structurally, these do not appear to be the same version of Rapture. Now, you might be thinking, maybe Irrational just got lazy, or maybe they just didn't want to spend the resources to duplicate it exactly. And for some things, like the room being slightly smaller, I might accept that. But they're close enough that it's pretty obvious the developers were basing this Rapture directly on the one from Bioshock. Why go through all the trouble to make them so close together down to the flickering lamp outside of the lighthouse, but change things like the statues, the ads on the walls, the banners, the balcony post, etc.? Why make the scale model dingy looking? Why change all the tubes on the outside? I don't feel like a studio which put so much effort into a game, or a franchise for that matter, about the multiverse, and a game which bears so close analysis would accidentally make these Raptures look so different. I'm sure they'd expect people to make comparisons like the one I did, but hey, let's just say, for science's sake, that it was a total accident, even though I'd say they created a new version of Rapture by default. Their choices led to a different universe, so either way, I am now totally convinced that we didn't return to the Rapture we all knew, only glimpsed at a new one. Have I convinced you too? Or do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. And as I mentioned, I will leave the article along with the Twitter of the author in the description below if I can find her Twitter. So again, let me know what you guys think in the comments of my video. So now it's time for my thoughts on this fan theory. Do I believe we end up getting teleported to potentially a different Rapture? I'm about 50-50. If you guys can give me some convincing arguments down in the comments, I'm more than happy to have the discussion. However, there is one thing that I want to mention. So I think that partially we do get teleported to a different part of Rapture. However, at the same time, I don't know. That's why I said I'm on the fence at 50-50. The only reason why I think we do is because Ken Levine was so precise with everything that he put into the game. And all of these screenshots that were shown within this video and within this article just state the complete opposite. And I don't think Ken Levine would do that. He was the one that wanted everything down to a T to be almost perfect. So the fact that there's so many significant changes in this version of Rapture kind of makes me lean more towards us getting teleported to a new Rapture, or an alternate Rapture for that matter. However, at the same time, I also believe that it was to complete the narrative of the multiverse factor of Bioshock Infinite. So, with that being said, again, let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below, and let me know if you enjoyed the video as well. So, if you guys did enjoy it, would you kindly hit that like button? It helps out tremendously. If you're new here and enjoy the content, want to join the Rapture family, or help the Rapture family grow, would you kindly hit that subscribe button, share the video with some family and friends, and turn on those notifications to never miss a video or a live stream when I go live. If you want to stay up to date with me outside of YouTube, my social medias are the best ways to do so. My Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook page, I believe, and my Discord server are all down in the description if you guys are interested in checking those out. Anyways, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. More recent videos should be popping up on the screen now if you want to go check them out. And with that being said, I will talk to you guys in the next video. Take care, and thank you guys for all the recent support. I really do appreciate it. Take care.